I've been playing Project Zomboid recently on a friend server, and he's helped me get set up with some pretty significant equipment. I'm out of my element and new to the systems and how things work, but I'm eager to prove myself, and he's got just the opportunity for me to do that. He wants me to go out and find myself a set of wheels. That's one of those things that I wasn't expecting to have to do for quite some time. And knowing that if I died, I'd lose all of this equipment, these weapons, this armor, added a fair bit of pressure to me. But I don't think he would ask me to do it if he wasn't confident I'd be able to get it done. Armed with one more piece of equipment, that being a green bicycle, I set out on my adventure to find a set of wheels. I had a vague idea where to start my search because we had been out on an expedition to a town a little bit earlier. I knew that if I went too far, I'd probably end up getting lost, and that would defeat the entire purpose. But I also knew that coming back empty-handed would be pathetic, and that's not something that I could tolerate. So I head down the road in the direction of the town that we were at, and got to looking. I was armed with a 9mm pistol. The road towards the town was relatively long and pretty empty. It was almost resembling peaceful. But despite that, I knew that I couldn't let my guard down. There was a lot riding on this. As I made my way around the curve, I could tell that I was getting closer to a neighborhood. Turning into this rural neighborhood, I headed down the street past a zombie that wasn't paying attention, and I came across an intersection. I parked at the very corner. I want to leave my bike in places where I know I can find it if I need it. And I equipped a Spas 12-gauge shotgun. Not great for range, but if there are multiple zombies grouped up, I could take them down. And to test this, I doubled back a little bit and blasted that zombie right in the chest. I wasn't too concerned with making a whole lot of noise because the area was very open, and if I needed to escape, I could very easily. I checked the corpse for anything that might have use or value to me, and I settled for just taking their tights and their lingerie. They didn't have anything else of particular value, so I moved on. I went straight ahead, checked a mailbox, and noticed that there were 2 wrecked vehicles, 1 car and 1 truck with a trailer attached to it. I knew for a fact that these would make for terrible vehicles, but I still tried my best to search them for anything useful anyway. Yeah, but I didn't really find too much. Very nearby was a white house with a brown roof, with a garage that seemed too inviting to just ignore. I opened up the garage door, which was surprisingly unlocked, and it was empty. Bummer. I figured that if there was a car worth stealing, it would probably be parked inside of a garage, and that would have like a much better durability than, just cars abandoned on the road. I went back to my bike at the corner and decided to head down the turn after all. It seemed to be more houses that way, so it seemed to be the better idea. Scouting around for more houses with garages, I soon realized that these houses were a little bit too small for that. Most of the people would just park their cars on a driveway. I got off my bike and dealt with a crowd of zombies with my shotgun. There's about 5 of them in total, but they all went down in 2 blasts. This thing was very convenient. I took a moment to check them for anything, and found that one of the zombies had to be some sort of hardcore smoker. 20 cartons of cigarettes. I don't smoke personally, but I'm sure I could either give it to somebody who does or trade it to somebody who does. I went back to my bike and dealt with one more zombie. And after checking them, I get on my bike and decide to move along. There's still more houses on this neighborhood. I passed by a burned house, several zombie corpses, but nothing that made me think that there was going to be a car. Since I have been staying relatively in a singular area, I decided to venture a little further down the curve of the same road. I saw a wrecked SUV and a blue, I don't know what type of car that was, but they were tore up from the floor up. Figured that it would be worth checking anyway. I get inside the blue car, search the seats. I find an ebony magazine, a map of the area, which is super handy, a magazine about photography, and some bandages. Satisfied with that, I take a quick look through the glove box and then get out. This car was empty of fuel, there was no key, and again, looked like it had been beat. But I checked the 2 random keys I had found in a previous adventure on my keyring, and neither of them seemed to fit inside of it either, so that was out. I did the same thing for the SUV, getting in and checking the glove box, where I found 20 more packs of cigarettes, as well as a battery. Now, I'm not entirely sure what happened to my flashlight, but flashlight or no, batteries are useful. So I took those, and then I got out of that. Deciding that I didn't want to blow through all of my shotgun shells, I decided to switch to my 9mm pistol before moving on. I was scouting with a fairly heavy load, so nothing too serious, but in a pinch it would slow me down and reduce my crit rate. I got back on my bike and took the turn again, and there was another curve in the road, but no houses. That's when I came across a black car. This one looked very promising. It did have a red bloodstain on the hood, but all of the windows were intact, and there was no other signs of damage. After getting inside and checking the glove box, I found some more bandages, as well as the key to the car. I quickly get out because I noticed that there were zombies in the area. I didn't want to risk shooting the car, so I lured the zombie around the corner and shot it straight. The others were a little further off, and I was able to deal with them fairly quickly. Three zombies, 5 shots, but my accuracy did not. I needed to think. So I got back inside of the car to take another quick look. The car, of course, would not start. It was completely out of gas, but other than that, it seemed to be completely fine. Maybe a little low on oil. What am I gonna do? The trunk was locked, so I went ahead and unlocked that. got out to see what was inside of the trunk. Jackpot. Inside the trunk was an empty gas can and some other very, very useful things. Duct tape, tarp, tote bags. But most importantly, was that empty gas can. So I had the key, I had a working car, I just needed to get some gas. I was kind of afraid to leave the car where it was at, but I figured anybody who found it wouldn't be able to get inside, and even if they could, they'd have the same issue as me, no gas. But now that I know where this is, it's in an area that I can get to easily, I decided that it would be best to head back and ask my friend for advice. Tell him that I found a car, but I needed fuel for it. I hopped on my bike and made the long ride back to our outpost. Once I made it back, I noticed that we had a visitor, but I didn't really have the time to address them properly. I told him that I had found a car and that I also managed to get my hands on a gas can. He had good news for me. There was actually a gas station nearby in the opposite direction. Our visitor was heading in that way and offered to lead me to the place. So, after running through my inventory a little bit and letting them back out of our compound, I followed the visitor, who was kind enough to drive slowly for me, all the way up the road. And to Gas and More. Gas and More gas station. I thanked him, filled up the empty gas can, and then got back on my bike with a heavy load, weighed a ton, and made my way back down the road. Back on my bike and on my way to pick up my car. I had asked him what to do with the bike, and he said that it would be a good idea to just ditch it where I found the car. At first, I thought that was a little bit of a waste, but when I thought about it a bit more, it made a lot of sense. Somebody in a pinch would be more than glad to find that bike and use it to either escape or just general transportation. Finally, back at my car, I filled it up with gas. Hopped in the driver's seat after putting the gas can back in the trunk. We're moving. Now, I'm not the best driver on the planet. In fact, I don't even have a license, so I was a little wobbly at first. But once I got the hang of it, I was actually a pretty confident driver. I might have made one tiny little bump with a small tree, but it was very, very slow. Probably wouldn't even notice it. I made my way out of the neighborhood. Back up the road. And into the front gates of our compound. Mission partially successful. It probably doesn't mean a whole lot to somebody who's a veteran at Project Zomboid, but to me, a complete noob who doesn't even have more than 2 hours, this was a huge accomplishment. I reported to my friend, who said that he'd have somebody take a look at it later, and made myself comfortable for the night and went to sleep.